Hello, Waterford students. It's Mrs. Durst, and welcome to Lesson 2. We are talking about the 4 aspects of art that really set the stage, create emotion, and communicate a mood. So I welcome you to think about those 4 aspects: the weather, time of day, season, and setting. Last time we talked about how the weather can affect art and help draw us in. No matter what time or place it was, we understand weather and how an artist uses it to make us feel something. Today, we're really going to focus in on the time of day. Specifically, I really want to talk about sunrise, daytime, sunset, and night. We are first in this lesson going to look at some of the most famous paintings that use the time of day to draw us in and help us connect with these wonderful artists who have become so famous and meaningful to us that I hope you enjoy their art. But, you may like one better than the other. And that's the other thing you need to do while we look at all this art, is decide, what do I like? What do I enjoy looking at? So I hope you're doing that as well. So let's switch over and start looking at some very famous art. Okay. Here we have the most famous painting of a sunrise that has ever been made. This painting, called Impression Sunrise, was painted by Claude Monet in a hotel room overlooking a port near Normandy, France. This painting was painted in 1872, which is 148 years ago. This one painting sparked what is called the Impressionist movement. It is the original Impressionist painting ever painted. What we're looking at here is a hazy, foggy morning. You can see it, we're in a port. There are ships and their riggings kind of in the background. We also see 2 boats in the forefront, in kind of shadow, in a dark color, maybe black. And they look like little fishing boats, maybe a father and son or a father and daughter are out in their little boat trying to get a few fish for the day. Why I love this painting is that the sunrise is definitely important. You can see that though it's a murky day, you can see that lovely ball of color in the background. Claude Monet was also extremely famous for his water lily paintings. He painted over 250 different watercolor paintings. These were all painted at his home in Giverny, France. Now, keep in mind, these paintings are huge. They take up an entire wall of a building. And this is one of my most favorites. You can see this particular water lily painting in New York City. But I love this one because I feel like even though I'm looking at water lilies, I can see the reflection of the day, the beautiful blue sky, maybe some tinkling, beautiful sunlight reflected in the water in front of me. So Monet was one of our most famous painters who used daylight and how it played in water in over 250 very important water lily paintings. So I think that this one is beautiful, but you might find one, if you go out and do some research, that you love even more. Another daylight painting is called Christina's World. This was painted in 1948 by Andrew Wyeth. This painting is only 72 years old. I love this painting. In fact, when I was a little girl, we were, as a family, allowed to rent or borrow a painting from our library every 2 weeks. And I always picked this one. Now, I picked this one because I thought it was beautiful. Other people think this painting is a little lonely, perhaps a little too stark in the middle of the day, that there's hardly any shadow. You can almost tell that the sun is right overhead on Christina, and probably very warm and hot. I loved it because I imagined in this painting that this might be Dorothy on her day she gets to come home from Oz. But that's a whole nother story. But this is a great, important work, probably one of the most important American paintings ever painted, again by Andrew Wyeth. Ah, the Fighting Temeraire. This is arguable, but most English citizens will say this is the most important painting from England. It is painted by Mr. Turner. We saw his snowstorm in our weather segment, but this is his most famous painting. It is painted at sunset, and that is super important with this painting. It was painted in 1838. That was 182 years ago. And Mr. Turner got to witness this very moment and then went home and painted it. What you're looking at is the Temeraire. He is in the back, that beautiful pirate-looking ship with all the detail is the Temeraire, and he is England's hero ship. The Temeraire fought at Trafalgar. That is a big battle where France and England were facing off. That would be Commodore Nelson and Commodore Napoleon going at each other. And the Temeraire actually was the hero of the day. It saved the most important ship called the Victory from utter defeat. Also captured 2 enemy ships that day. So this ship was famous and loved in England. However, the Temeraire uses sails and wind to move around. And at the time of this painting, new technology was creeping in, and steam powered by coal was all the rage. In fact, the tugboat pulling the Temeraire into port for the last time is a symbol that shows that technology was taking over. It was the setting of an era. It was a sunset on wind and sail. And this painting captures it so beautifully. And I want you to look at one thing in this painting. Though it is a water picture, there's a very little blue. The artist Turner used the image of the sunset reflecting in the water to create this most amazing reflection. And it's just very beautiful. So the time of day in this picture means something. It means the setting of an era, a setting of a day, and I think it's just a lovely moment in time. Rembrandt is one of the world's most famous painters, and this is one of his most famous works. This is called The Night Watch. It was painted in 1642. That is 378 years ago. Look at the detail of the guns and the swords and the clothing in these gentlemen. The Night Watch was something that occurred in about every large town. Um, they would get together in the evening and they would protect a village or a town through the night. So it was an important honor to be a part of a night watch. Think of them kind of as policemen of the time. This painting has all sorts of movement and action. You can almost hear the men speaking to each other, getting ready for their rounds. There's a guy testing his drum out because, of course, they would march all night to the sound of the beating drum that kept them in line. One thing to think about this painting is that it is ginormous, meaning in real life, this painting is so big that the men that you see here look life-size. So when you think of just the scale of this painting, it's incredible. During World War II, just a nice little idea about this painting, the Dutch trimmed it out of its frame, rolled it around a tube, and hid it from the Nazis. That's why it is with us today. It is painted on canvas, which is like denim material. So it is on fabric. So they were able to roll this painting in a tube and hide it in a very small place. It is exceptionally beautiful because it is depicting a moment at night, and night is mysterious and lovely. But the neat thing about this painting is when it was originally painted, it probably was more a sunset picture as the watch got together at sunset for their duties. It is the age of the paint which has really darkened it over time and created it to look like more of a nighttime scape. So this is Rembrandt's Night Watch. The Nighthawks. Edward Hopper painted the Nighthawks in 1942. So this painting is only 78 years old. This is Hopper's most important and famous painting, and it uses time of day so very well to set the stage and to create a mood. You can see that it's in the dead of night, but a couple is sharing a cup of coffee or tea in the middle of the night. The streets are empty. The darkness of the shops across the street tell us that it's late, it's very dark. But it sets this very wonderful moment where people are sharing the night and the romance of the night. Now, Hopper painted this painting after he went to an art show. He had gone to an art show at the museum in New York. It was probably a few months before he painted Nighthawks. He got to go to a painting, to see the paintings of Vincent van Gogh. And he said he painted this beautiful Nighthawks painting because he was so inspired by this painting right here. This is called Cafe Terrace at Night by Vincent van Gogh. It was painted 54 years prior to Nighthawks in 1888. And it shows a coffee house with bright lighting coming from within into the dark night where you can see the stars in the sky. This was painted 1 year before Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. I love this painting. I love it for a lot of reasons. First of all, this is a painting of night that has absolutely not a single brush stroke of black in it. Can you believe it? Even the darkest colors in this painting are either blue or violet or green. So I think that's pretty neat that Vincent van Gogh created a night painting without using any black. I love this also because I can almost feel the mystery and the magic of a French evening. I noticed that the shop across the street is still open. There's still light coming from within, and people are walking from that shop into the cafe. So I think this painting is very important and one of Claude Monet's very famous ones for sure. But now I want to take you to a painting that by far is the most famous painting that uses time of day. Haha! Starry Night, also painted by Vincent van Gogh. This was painted from Vincent's hospital bedroom when he was about, I don't know how old he was, but he had checked himself into a hospital because he was unwell. He would watch from his hospital room at night images across this beautiful French landscape, and then the next day go down to the lobby where the nurses would help him, and he would paint what he thought of or remembered from the night before. This painting is of a French landscape deep in the night, just before dawn in June, and he said that he captured this wonderful image, and the swirls were most likely the wind that he felt that night, that summer wind and that summer lovely moment. By far, this is the most famous painting using time of day to inspire a mood and pull feeling from an audience. To this day, this may be one of the most famous paintings of all time. And I'm glad we got to look at that together. Thank you for looking at all that very famous art with me. I would like you now to find your lesson 2. Here we go with Fauna on it. And Fauna's going to be with us. We will work together in this wonderful packet in a few minutes. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you next as we work together. Bye-bye.